Now we start exploring exchange rates. But in order to understand exchange rates, actually, it's a good idea to start with the following example. So assume there is some market. And let's say in this market, you have access to a product which you can buy or sell for $100. So as soon as you need that product, you can buy it for $100. And as soon as you want to sell it, you can sell it for $100 in that market. Now, you decided to open a business. So you open a store where you decided to buy or sell the same product as you have access to in that market. Okay. Now, there are consumers. So these are consumers. Okay. And these consumers can only interact with your store. So the trick is that these consumers cannot interact with that market. So for example, if some consumer would like to buy a product, they have to go to your store. They cannot go to that market, okay? So they have access to your store, but no, they don't have access to that market. They have access only to your store, okay? So if you sell, the product, you add commission, right? So in this case, okay, let's say you add $10. So if you sell the product, you add $10. So you sell for $110. It's very important. Note that when you sell, you add $10. So what's going on is that if you sell this product, right? So you sell for $110. So the way it works is that you buy yourself for $100 and you sell for $110. As a result, you make $10 profit. And your customer can come only to you. So they have to pay to you $110, right? And of course, if they could get to the market, they would pay $100, but they cannot. So they have to pay $110. And you buy that product for $100. So your profit is $10. Or we can also call this commission. Your commission is $10. Okay? But in your store, you also not only sell that product, but you can also buy this product from your consumers. Okay. So if you buy the product, you subtract commission, right? $10. If you want to make $10 commission, you subtract it. And again, so if you buy, you subtract $10. And the idea is that the consumer will come to your store and wants to sell that product to you, okay? So you are buying it for $90. And as soon as you buy it for $90, you sell it to that market for $100 and you make again $10. So regardless if you sell or buy, you always make $10 in this example, okay? So let's keep this example in mind and discuss exchange rates. So exchange rates actually work very similarly. So you have a market, okay, and you are a bank. So you are in the business of buying or selling currency, right? So in this case, it's a bank. and the bank has access to the market. Okay, and the market has exchange rate. The market has exchange rate. So this exchange rate is the price that the bank has access to buy or sell currency. But consumers do not have access to the market. Okay? Consumers have access to the bank, but consumers do not have access to the market. Okay? And because consumers have access to the bank only, and because business of the bank is to make money interacting with the consumer, right? The bank is going to buy or sell currency. So the bank will buy or sell currency from consumers. Okay, and what's going on here is that if the bank sells the currency to the consumer, the bank will add commission. Right? Because the bank needs to make money. So what they do is that they buy themselves at the exchange rate, and then they sell to the consumer by adding commission. And if they buy currency from the consumers, then they would subtract commission. Okay? So this is how this works in a very simple example, right? In a very simple situation. We will see examples, real life examples shortly, but what you need to do, you need to keep in mind this structure that consumers have access to the bank, but consumers do not have access to the exchange rate in the market. They only have access to buy or sell rate. So we have to differentiate between the following. Okay? So we have to make sure that we understand this. So we have exchange rate, right? We have buy rate, and we have sell rate. Now, exchange rate is what the banks have access to, but consumers do not. Consumers only have access to buy rate and sell rate. Okay, and we will see how this works in the examples. First, we'll start with the following example. If the exchange rate is 1 Canadian dollar to 0.7243 United States dollars, how many USD can be exchanged for 5,650 Canadian dollars? And part B is how many Canadian dollars can be exchanged for 7,870 USD. Okay. So in order to solve this problem, we need to first pay attention to the language. So here we have exchange rate. Okay. We're talking here about exchange rate. We're talking about that rate which the market has for currency conversion. So probably this question is about the bank and its ability to exchange 5,650 Canadian dollars using that exchange rate, and vice versa. The bank would be exchanging here $7,870, right, using this exchange rate. So this is a very simple problem. It doesn't involve any commission, and we need simply solve it building the following ratio, right? So here we have this price for 1 Canadian dollar, right? So basically what this means is that 1 to 0.7243, right? So 1 Canadian dollar to 0.7243 United States dollars. is the same as 5,650 Canadian dollars to X US dollars, right? So we are now speaking about part A of the problem. It's part A. So we basically built this equation here, right? So 1 Canadian dollar to 0.7243 USD should be the same as 5,650 Canadian dollars to unknown number of USDs. So from here, we will be finding our X, which is 5,650 times 0.7243 divided by 1, right? So we're resolving this by cross multiplying, right? So you can see it's we multiply by diagonal here, and then we divide by whatever is remaining. So X is going to be 4,092.30. Okay. What about part B? In part B, we need to find Canadian dollars, which could be exchanged to 7,870. So in this case, again, we have the same ratio. So 1 Canadian dollar to 0.7243 is the same as unknown Canadian dollars to 7,870 USD. Again, we cross multiplying and then dividing by the remaining number here. So it's 7,870 times 1 divided by 0.7243. This is 10,865.66. 10,865.66. So this problem just shows a simple conversion of the rate when we only have exchange rate. Let's now check another problem. A bank in Toronto has an exchange rate. 1 USD is 1.3895 Canadian dollars. If the bank charges commission, you see, we now have commission, 2.3% to buy or sell currencies, how many USD would you receive if you sold your 5,670 Canadian to the bank? All right, so in this case, we have a commission. Okay. Now, when we solve this problem, you have to be very careful. All right. So remember that example when the bank has access to remember that discussion when the bank has access to the market for the exchange rate, but consumers have only access to the bank, and consumers will deal with buy or sell rate. So in this problem, you will notice that the language is this. If you sold 5,670 Canadian to the bank, okay? But even though we say that you sold this money to the bank, what you really need to identify right now are several things. First thing is, where is the bank? Because that will be very important for this problem. And why it is important, I will also highlight in other examples. So a bank in Toronto, so the bank is in Toronto. Now, why it is important to know where the bank is? Because we want to know what the domestic currency is. So here, let me write this. Domestic currency is Canadian dollars, right? So domestic currency is Canadian dollars. Now, you see, you can say, in our common language, we can call this transaction that you sell 5,670 Canadian dollars to the bank. But in reality, you need to always analyze problems like this from the position of the bank. And from the position of the bank, you will see that actually the bank could not buy 5,670 Canadian dollars from you because the bank cannot buy their own currency. They can only sell a foreign currency. So in this transaction, we are talking about sell rate of the bank. So the bank actually sells USD. It's very important to understand this. So you say that you sold 5,670 Canadian to the bank, but in reality, and what is very important, is that the bank actually sold USD to you because the bank is in Canada and Canadian dollar is domestic currency which can pay for or buy another currency. So in this case, the foreign currency is USD, and therefore the bank sells USD to you. And that's what we call sell rate. So sell rate is the term which is only valid from the position of the bank. So just because you see here that you sold 5,670 Canadian dollars to the bank, that's not because of that we call this rate sell rate. It's because actually that the bank sells USD to you. That's why we call this a sell rate. So the bank sells USD. Now we need to find that sell rate. So let's think about what happens now and how the bank is supposed to make money. The bank themselves will be buying currency from the market using the exchange rate. So then the bank will buy USD for this price. And then they will sell this USD to you. And of course, if they want to make money, they have to add commission on top. So in order to find the sell rate, it must be that you add commission to the domestic side of the exchange rate. And in this case, domestic side is this, right? So this is the Canadian side. So you add commission to that side. This is how it looks. Like this. The bank has made commission by adding 2.3% on top of the price they themselves can procure the currency at the market, and that price is the exchange rate. So the bank buys at the exchange rate themselves and then add 2.3% commission on top. So let's now build that equation which we will be using to find the answer to this question, right? So now we see that 1 United States dollar to 1.3895 times 1.023. In the denominator, this is the sell rate. That's the Canadian dollars for 1 American dollar. That is equal to X here, because we don't know how many American dollars would be received for 5,670 Canadian. 5,670 Canadian here. From here, we'll be finding that it's going to be 5,670. So this amount times 1, right? Times 1. I don't have to write times 1, but just to make sure. And divide by 1.3895 times 1.023. So let's calculate this. 3,000 $988.86 USD. So once again, I want to review this problem. So the bank is in Toronto, which means that Canadian dollar is the domestic currency. This means that the bank actually sells USD to you. So if you need USD, if you say that you sell your Canadian dollars to get USD, what the bank is doing, that they are selling USD to you. And because they sell USD to you, they call it sell rate. How do they make money? Well, the bank themselves will buy the currency using the exchange rate because they have access to that exchange rate. So then they add commission. They add 2.3% commission, and they create sell rate this way, right? So now you build that equation, which is $1 United States dollar to the sell rate is the unknown number of United States dollars to the amount you are giving, right? 5,670 Canadian dollars. So you solve this equation, you solve this ratio, and you find that you have 3,988.86 USD that you are receiving. Actually, I want to use also this problem to make a little bit of modification so that you see what happens to the problem. For example, if I change Toronto to New York, so how would this problem change if I change Toronto to New York? Will there be any difference? And the answer is yes. So this change, Toronto to New York, means that the bank now is in United States and the domestic currency now is US dollar. So this is the domestic side of the currency. Now, in New York, if you sell 5,670 Canadian to an American bank, this means that the bank is actually buying Canadian dollars from you, because in New York, Canadian dollar is the foreign currency, and therefore they are buying it. So they cannot sell USD to you because they cannot sell their own currency. They can only buy foreign currency. So therefore, it would be buy rate. Buy rate. Again, we analyze this from the position of the bank. And from the position of the bank in New York, they would be buying your Canadian dollar because Canadian dollar is the foreign currency. Remember, the bank can only buy or sell foreign currency. That's why you need to know which is the domestic currency. So in New York, the bank would be buying Canadian dollars, and it would be a buy rate. And the buy rate would be, for buy rate, it is subtracting commission from the domestic side. So the buy rate in this case would be 1 minus 0.023 equals to 1.3895. So this is USD, and this is Canadian dollars, right? So this would be the buy rate. And then you would build a similar equation and solve this, and you would see it's a different answer. So in this problem, just keep in mind that simply changing the location of the bank changes the perspective of the bank, and it's not sell rate anymore, it's buy rate. And when you have a buy rate, it's going to be subtracting commission. So for our future problem solving, I want to tell you something. So remember when we spoke about currencies, so when you sell, you add commission. When you buy, you subtract commission, right? So you should never forget about this. And to easily remember that when you sell, you add commission, and vice versa, when you buy, you subtract commission. By you, I mean the bank. Like if you are the bank, so then if you sell, you add commission, and if the bank buys, they subtract commission. In order to easily remember this, I like to use this, mnemonic. Mnemonic is a word that helps you remember things. So salad, it's very easy to remember. It doesn't make sense, of course, like there is nothing mathematical about the word salad. But why this helps is because if you remember the word salad, you can remember that if you sell, you add, okay? So basically a salad is sell, add, right? So if you work for the bank, so then when you sell, you add commission. And if the bank buys, the bank subtracts commission, right? So for our future problem solving, we remember this. First, we need to understand that where is the bank? Where is the bank? Because this gives us information about the domestic currency. So then, does the bank buy or sell? So is it buy rate or sell rate, right? And remember that the bank only can buy or sell foreign currency. That's why when you know where the bank is, you know which is the foreign currency, and you can identify if the bank buys or sells that foreign currency. And then if it's a sell rate, add commission. Add commission. And you remember it by this word salad, which can help you. And if it's buy rate, it's subtract commission. And you go from there. So let's now go ahead and check out more problems. So a bank in Nova Scotia has an exchange rate, which is $1 United States dollar to 1.3496 Canadian dollars. If the bank charges commission of 2.3% to buy or sell currencies, how many Canadian dollars would you receive if you sold your 7,630 USD to the bank? Again, we start analyzing it similarly. So the bank is in Nova Scotia, which is Canada. So what we know is that Canadian dollar is the domestic currency, right? It's a domestic currency. Well, why do we need to know about this? Because now we read here is that you sold your 7,630 to the bank, right? So what does that mean from the position of the bank? Well, United States dollar is the foreign currency for the bank. Therefore, they bought this from you, right? So we are talking here about buy rate. So the bank bought USD from you. And because we always think from the position of the bank is buying USD from you. And as a result, we need to find buy rate. So how do we find buy rate? So we remember that mnemonic, that salad. Salad means if we sell currency, we add commission if we are the bank. But if the bank buys currency, the bank would be subtracting commission from the domestic side. Okay, so what is the domestic side? Right here, right? So that's a domestic side, meaning that that's the side which contains domestic currency. In this case, the buy rate would be US $1 is Canadian 1.3496. Commission is being subtracted here from the domestic side. Okay, so that's the buy rate. Again, you see, the bank will be buying cheaper and then selling to the market at a higher price. So that's how the bank would be making that commission. So again, we are building that equation, which is 1 United States dollar to 1.3496, 1 minus 0.02 3. So that's the buy rate here. So 1 USD is being bought for this much Canadian dollars. And again, we build that equation here. So we have now 7,630 USD, which is to X Canadian dollars. From here, we will be finding this X, which is 7,630 times 1.3496, 1 minus 0.023. 10,000 60.61. 10,060.61. All right, so actually, let's analyze this problem again, asking this question. What if the bank is not in Nova Scotia, but let's say in Chicago, right? So we have the bank in Chicago, which means that we have now domestic side is this, and it's USD dollars, right? So if now you sell your $7,630 to the bank in Chicago, so what this means is that the bank will be selling Canadian currency to you, and you would be dealing with sell rate. And the sell rate in this case, it would be 1 US dollar, okay, and you add commission. So this domestic side is being increased by the commission, right? And then this would be 1.3496. And then you would go from here. You see, just changing where the bank is changes the perspective on what we do in terms of buy rate or sell rate. So in this case, if the bank is not in Canada but in US, the buy rate becomes sell rate, and also the side matters, right? So the domestic side has to be affected by the commission. Let's go to the next problem. After returning from your vacation into Canada, you have 4,500 euros left and would like to sell them. A Canadian bank offers 1.5% commission to buy or sell currencies. If the exchange rate is 1 Canadian dollar to 0.6405 euro, how many Canadian dollars would you receive? Okay. Again, let's see. So you are in Canada and the bank is Canadian bank. Now you are selling those euros. But what does the bank do in Canada? So euro is a foreign currency in Canada, so the bank is going to buy that currency from you, right? So you are talking here about buy rate, because the bank in Canada would buy euros from you, okay? And because it's a buy rate, so we take that domestic side of the currency, right? So this is the domestic side here. And we modify that domestic side by removing commission from it, right? Subtracting commission from the domestic side. So you have 1 times 1 minus 0.014 equals to, so this is Canadian dollars, right? So this is equals to 0.6405 euro. And that's the buy rate. So now you build your equation. So 1 minus 0.014. So this many Canadian dollars to 0.6405 euros is the same as unknown number of Canadian dollars to 4,500 euros. And you now solve this ratio by finding x. X is going to be 4,500, 1 minus 0.014 divided by 0.6405. So let's solve it. 6,927.40. So for 4,500 euros, you would be getting 6,927.40 in the Canadian bank. And finally, let's check out our last problem, and that's that. If an exchange rate is 1 US is 1.4012 Canadian, and Canadian bank's buy rate, so that's the buy rate, is 1 US dollar is 1.3908, what is the bank's commission rate? So how much does the bank charge in commission in terms of rate? So that's the buy rate, right? And what is the buy rate? The buy rate in Canada is when you take that domestic side of the exchange rate and subtract commission, right? So when the bank buys, and when we're talking about the bank's buy rate, commission is being subtracted from the domestic side of the exchange rate. So we take that 1.4012, subtract commission rate, which we don't know, and we're supposed to be receiving that buy rate, which is 1.3908. Right? So now we need to find R. So 1 minus R is 1.3908 divided by 1.4012. Finally, R is 1 minus 1.3908 divided by 1.4012. So let's solve it. 0.00742. Well, it's a rounded value. Okay, so the commission is 0.74%, right? So if I round that percent to 2 decimals, 0.74% commission. Okay, so that's the final problem in this lesson. And now the time is for you to practice with these concepts, doing homework.